From Deloitte Tax, welcome to the Tax News and Views podcast. In this series, we talk to specialists from Deloitte about the latest business issues and developments. I'm Carrie Falkenhayn, your host for Tax News and Views. Today's topic is part of our ongoing discussion on the transformation of finance, and in particular, how those trends are impacting the tax department. Joining me today is Jonathan Englert, a principal from Deloitte Consulting and a specialist in finance transformation. We will also hear from Martin Lopez, a managing director from Deloitte's tax management consulting practice. And Jonathan, I will start off with you. Maybe you could share with us the latest trends in finance transformation.
Yeah, hi. Thanks for the question and super excited to be here. When we look across the landscape of what large global companies are doing today in the finance space more broadly, there's really three main interconnected forces that are driving the finance transformation landscape, broadly speaking. And that's really around infrastructure modernization. So we're seeing a lot of investment right now in the digital cores that the finance function runs off of, in the creation of information and data for all stakeholders. And tax is a super important stakeholder in all of the companies that we serve. And this force is really being driven by end of life of ERPs, movement of infrastructure to the cloud, the emergence of modern tools and opportunities to modernize processes. And that's really an opportunity for a finance function to modernize and move into the future. And tax really needs to be a part of that journey, just being such an important stakeholder for the information that is produced out of any finance function and organization. You know, we really want tax to be there as that infrastructure is modernized. Another major force we see right now and what's going on is really around talent. And I'm sure that's not a surprise to anybody, but it is hard to have a conversation these days in any organization and in any function, but specifically in finance, without talking about what's going on the talent agenda, what opportunities are available for your talent, and how are people contributing to finance teams. And really what we're seeing right now is how do organizations create an engaging workplace as all of this modernization is happening, where people can meaningfully contribute to the modernization of the function, the modernization of processes and tools, and really creating a better place to do work. The last force we're really seeing around finance transformation is all about getting the most out of data in the organization. And that's super linked to the other two forces, because data is obviously coming out of your ERPs and out of your infrastructure. How well you can access it, make sense of it, use and analyze it is linked to your talent. But there's just so much focus right now on really trying to harness the power of big data sets, granular data sets, because so much of it is available at our fingertips right now. And so really across these three forces, the modernization of infrastructure, the focus on talent, and making the most of data, that's really the three large things that I see in the marketplace driving the finance transformation agenda.
And at the perfect time, right? I think the need for modernization and providing a different talent experience and getting better insights from data, that's exactly what businesses are looking for right now. Martin, maybe you could talk a little bit about what you're seeing from a tax perspective related to these trends.
Sure. And, honestly, very similar to what Jonathan is talking about is also happening within tax realm. I think that couple things, though, that do stick out that are, to me, very specific to tax. One of the first things is what we call the digitization of tax authorities. This is really one of the biggest trends that we're seeing today in tax and within finance transformation. So it's not just the private sector and corporations that are going through this digital revolution, but it's also the government sector that's jumped on into this technology bandwagon. Globally, some of the trends and changes that we're seeing today are really around the push for real-time reporting. So there's this shift from a push of data from the taxpayer to the tax authority to a pull of data from the tax authority. So you think about that for a second, what does that really mean? Well, the way that you and I file our tax returns today, right? We enter data on a form and we push that information to the tax authority. That's how it's been done. But we're seeing a shift in certain tax jurisdictions where they're saying, hey, you know what? Instead of that, we'll pull your data from your systems and we'll figure out your tax liability. So there's an expectation that this trend is not only going to continue, but the scope of these requirements are going to broaden in how taxpayers need to comply with these digital reporting mandates. We see it in the indirect tax space. Specifically, we see our clients struggle with everything that is E in nature. That's what I call it, E in nature. So e-filings, e-reporting, e-invoicing, and e-audits. This started a few years back around e-invoicing in certain Latin America countries. And then it morphed and moved to Europe, where they started with what's called SAFTI reporting. And now you have countries all over the world in Australia, Romania, Japan, Vietnam, just to name a few, right? That they're also jumping into this e-invoicing and e-reporting mix. Another trend that we see in finance transformation is not just the financial systems are moving towards cloud, but we see business process transformations as well. They're also moving towards cloud platforms, and the software that supports those business processes are cloud-based. And we see a lot of that now. So what does that mean, and how does that impact tax? Well, when you look at the new procurement system, right, you're going to have to make decisions around, how do I calculate tax for these business processes in this new application? Do I look at third-party tax engines to automate taxes within purchasing and accounts payable? Or do I look at the internal functionality of the procurement system? Does it have tax functionality to be able to address my needs? And then lastly, we talk about finance transformation, ERP migration to cloud, and business processes, but it's also the tax applications that are moving to the cloud platforms. And they need to do this to be able to integrate to the cloud ERPs, to the cloud procurement systems, and be able to keep up with those market demands for better capabilities and better enhanced reporting functionalities. So a lot of trends happening, and what I envision, just it's going to continue to happen, and I would expect more in the horizon.
It does sound like these trends are impactful to most organizations. So given those trends, what priorities should organizations think about right now? And maybe, Jonathan, you could start us off with that question.
Absolutely. Yeah. Thanks for the question. I'll tie it back to the trends that we talked about a little bit earlier, and then some of the points that Martin just made. So Martin really talked about the movement to E everything. It's almost hard to remember that E standing for electronic. So the move, everything becoming more and more digital. And I think that the mandate for organizations is to really simplify as many things and as many processes as they can to take full advantage of digital. And the foundation for that in a function like finance and for stakeholders like tax is really having your enterprise data strategy locked and set and centralized around your finance data model. And the reason that that's so important is because it's so foundational. It gets baked into your infrastructure. So we talked before about a modernized, digital core and infrastructure. It's got to be baked around your data model. And then that gets built into your organization and into your processes. If you have a really, really good version of that, that's understood by all of your people, getting back to that talent trend, your people understand the data. They're not fighting with it and wrangling it all the time. They're actually harnessing it for insights. And I think that's where we're really trying to get organizations to move, is from the wrangling and fighting and sense making in data to the having clean data sets that allow you to drive analytics off of it. And that's really where organizations are moving. Once you do that, you're able to drive the deeper analytics and insights off of that data. And that's where we see organizations going. So I think if I had to sum that all up into where to prioritize, it's about getting that good data model baked into your infrastructure that your people understand, that allow you to drive insights and support decision-making and other processes around the organization.
Well, with your comments around data, I think all tax people know the challenges with data as a tax person. And so I heard you say earlier, right, that tax is a big part of all the finance transformation activities that are going on at our clients and at organizations. Martin, maybe you could talk a little bit, just to expand on that. Why is it that tax and tax technology are so important in finance transformation?
Yes, definitely. And something that really speaks to, I think, a passion for all of us that are doing tax and technology, why it's important. I start with, let's, be a little bit transparent here. Let's be honest. For the most part, the reality is that tax was underrepresented the last time we had a major shift in ERP transformations. So the last one happened about 15 years ago or so. In my career, this is the second time now that I'm seeing a major shift in finance and tax applications. But in the last wave, the tax department, they didn't really get their requirements into their system design. It's a large reason why tax departments today still struggle with manual processes, with workarounds, increased risk, and really wasted time trying to get reporting out of the system or trying to identify where their data resides in the system. It's why we spend time talking to our clients about potential workaround solutions and how best to do with what they have. And it's why we have tax applications today that exist, because they need to be robust in the functionality so that users can be creative on how to get the right tax result with limited or incomplete data. And that's a lot of what we do today, really helping our clients. But if you look at what's happening today, those problems or those shortcomings really shouldn't happen this time around. We shouldn't look at it as a lift and shift of what's old is going to go into the new system. In this new wave of cloud migrations, tax departments should have an opportunity to get things right and finally get things right. It's why it's so important to have tax in that entire finance transformation journey. We always say a cloud migration should be and can be the catalyst to reimagining the tax processes. So moving to the cloud, it's going to offer you opportunities to automate, digitize, and enhance your tax department. You're going to have better opportunities for streamlining certain things that you do today, like your tax provision, your federal and state returns, your tax depreciation, transfer pricing, you name it, right? It's a great opportunity to achieve all of these benefits. And, if you think about it, and again, we talk about this a lot, finance transformation is what we refer to as a life-changing event for tax. And therefore, why it's really important to have tax just be a part of that whole transformation journey.
I think that sounds great to our tax professionals in the audience, Martin. Maybe to wrap us up, Jonathan, you can talk about what the best practices are to prepare for a finance transformation.
Absolutely. What I observe is the best is get involved early from a tax perspective. And for folks maybe not in the tax function, it would be to include the tax teams early on in discussions. There's just so much value add that can be there as one of the biggest consumers of information, within an organization, and the translation of data into external reporting for tax and statutory filings around the globe. They just need to be there. That way you're creating and designing with the end in mind. So it's about understanding the data that you need, the pain points and challenges that you may have today so that you can solve for them through the design of new processes and technologies. Really identifying the requirements on the reporting side that are going to need to be fulfilled by any change or transformation, and gaining alignment on those so that those requirements get designed into new tools, processes, and systems. I think what you're really trying to control for is that as you go through the effort of redesigning and building new processes and technologies, we don't end up at the end without being able to deliver to the tax function super usable and valuable data sets that help face off against the requirements that Martin alluded to before. I think that's really the most important thing. So getting tax at the table early, involved in all of the discussions, helping to define the requirements, and then being there throughout the entire journey and understanding a broader roadmap. That's the best way to prepare and the best way to really be involved throughout the journey.
Very helpful. Well, thank you, Martin and Jonathan, for this interesting and really exciting discussion about how finance transformation can ultimately help tax departments deliver more value to their organizations by creating more efficient processes and systems that let them get out of the data wrangling issues and that they face today. So really appreciate the discussion. If our listeners would like additional detail, first of all, you can reach out to both Martin and Jonathan via LinkedIn. And then I would also encourage you to go to Deloitte.com and search for the tax management consulting page there. There is a lot of additional content on finance transformation. As always, thank you for listening. We hope you tune in next time, and I hope you continue to be well. Take care.